All right, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the official first blog panel for the 2025 New Year's Kickoff Blitz.
No pressure.
No pressure. Epic fantasy has my heart because this is one of my favorite genres to write, but this is a first, and I am so excited and honored. I realized as I was doing our graphic, this is the very first epic fantasy panel I think I've ever done that was fully women authors writing epic. And I was like, yes. Don't get me wrong. For the men who are watching who are like, hey, I was like, yes, I love your books too. But this is just like, wow. It's so good to have all the representation here. Hey, AF. Hey, Luna. So if you've never tuned into one of our blitzes for the New Year's before, this is the 4th year we're doing these. And basically we get together as authors and we talk about books. We talk about writing and we give you guys some sneak peeks into what's coming in 2025 this year. So that way you can mark your calendars. But let's start with AJ and then maybe go around the circle. AJ, you want to start us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of epic fantasy you write.
Hi, I am Poppy Alexanders. I write with the pen name AJ Alexanders. I write D&D-esque fantasy adventure. So I've got Not Your Mountain, which is about a dwarf who goes on his very first adventure and encounters Murphy's Law. So everything that could go wrong goes wrong. It's a lot of fun. It's very lighthearted. It's a quick read. So a little bit less on the epic side. But we've got the dwarves, we've got the elves, we've got things like that. And then I have the follow-up. This one is a print proof, but it's the follow-up. It's called Not Your Bargain. It is essentially Gandalf and Gimli saying, get in the car, loser, we're going on a road trip. So it's very cute.
I love that.
But yeah, that's what I have going on. And I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
My pleasure. We love dwarf representation so much. My debut epic fantasy had a dwarf main character and a human queen main character. And I was like, we need more dwarves in our books.
Yes, we do. And I love that so much. I'll have to read that.
Oh, thank you. And Nikki Lee. We got 2 Nikki's. Nikki Lee, welcome. Good to see you. How are you doing? And tell the people who don't know who you are.
Hi. Hi, I'm Nikki. So I write, I guess, like a dark epic fantasy. So the first book is called The Rakensmeter. So basically a girl accidentally bonds herself with a monster, realizes the monster's magic is going to turn her insane, and has to traipse the monster across the empire to find someone to break the bond between them. And of course, as this seems to be a bit of a theme, nothing goes to plan. Everything that could go wrong does go wrong. So they end up as outlaws and on the run. And I've just released the second book in the series in October, which is The Rakens Fall. So yes, very exciting.
Yes, I love that second book cover. Who did your cover?
So it's a German lady called Isabel Backhaus. She's very active on Instagram and a little bit on Facebook and not Twitter anymore, but possibly Blue Sky. But yeah, she quite often will share these amazing artworks on her feeds. I just sit there and just scroll through the beautiful pictures.
Yeah. So many beautiful covers represented in our epic fantasy panel today too. Because if you've seen the graphic, the people who are watching, you can see I've just got one book cover underneath each person. And I'm like, they're all so pretty. So thanks for being here. And we're going to talk about books and characters in just a little bit, I think. But Nikki McCorrick, welcome. Tell us a little about you, what you write.
I write mostly epic fantasy. I actually do have a little bit of steampunk too, but mostly epic fantasy. I just released book 17, which was the 4th book in my my Warden Son series. Hey, look, it's in there. Okay. And I also finished this year releasing the audiobook versions of my Silverblood Raven books. So I have a lot going on, and epic fantasy is definitely my favorite, but I do a lot of, traditional epic fantasy with magic and, war, politics, all of that kind of stuff. So very much your standard classic epic fantasy.
Yes, love the classics, like breathing new life in the classics. Yeah. Good to have you on. I've always loved chatting with you. And Melinda, have you been here all 4 years? Are you like keeping a punch card?
No, I don't think I've been on every year. I think last year I missed it. It was already full. I only write epic fantasy. So once the epic fantasy panel is full, I'm like, okay, well, there's no other panel for me. I don't write romance. I only write epic fantasy, D&D style, classic fantasy, or I write all of it. I have 6 series. I've written over 30 books. The latest series is the Rogue God series, which is what's on the graphic, which just came out, and it's heists and time travel and complete madness. The characters drove me nuts. But yeah.
That's really exciting. Yes, it's good to see. One of the things I love watching the blitzes and people who do come back to other blitzes is seeing how your journey progresses along the way. Because it's like, oh, what we were doing 2 years ago is so totally different than what we're doing right now. So
Yeah.
fantastic. And I love the cover. Is this the one you're doing the audiobook for?
I'm doing the audiobook right now for the Rogue Gods trilogy. It just, the last part goes up on the 30th, whatever day that is. That's tomorrow, I think. And then I got to figure out the sequel. And doing the sequel's written and published, but I mean like the audiobook for it. Because the first one was a lot of work. Like, do we really want to do this again? So yeah, I gotta see how it does in the wild. Maybe take a little bit of a break. Behind me is my next Kickstarter. It is for the Robin of Larkspur series, which is warrior mom. Her daughter gets kidnapped, and has no magic. She's a low magic protagonist in a very high magic world, trying to find her child and get revenge, because that's what she does.
I'm watching Poppy face like, yes.
Sign me up. I'm there.
Yeah, this is warrior woman on a mission to save her daughter. There's also a mage, his son gets kidnapped, so he's equally on a mission. Yeah.
That's great. And so I'm actually going to let Melinda start, and we'll go around the opposite way, since we were already talking a little bit about the theme of what your new Kickstarter is going to be. You in the past have had books that have parental figures also, like that's something that's recurring in your fantasy. It's really unique. And how does this main character differ from the one that we've gotten to know reading your work in the last few years?
This series was supposed to be a standalone that I wrote for the Rogues guys. But that was a box set that came out in 2019, and it hit the USA Today bestseller list. And the character decided, Robin, the hero in the story, decided it was not going to be standalone. She did not see to inform me until the end of the book. She's like, I had no magic. How was I supposed to find my child in 60,000 words? Why did you not know this was not going to happen? Why am I the only one who realized that it was going to take me a few books and to get some help in order to do this? But yeah, so it's actually, she decided her series would take place 4 years before my Chris Baker series, which is the most popular series, which stars a single father who is just trying to raise his little boy, despite the monsters that show up and knock on their door, not usually to ask for help. Usually they're trying to tear down the door and the city that he lives in, and he's getting dragged into all kinds of things. So her series takes place 4 years before that. It involves him because he doesn't like all the danger and adventure and all that, but he somehow shows up in every single book and gets involved in every single adventure, even though he doesn't particularly want to be in danger or to have his son in danger. Although his son likes to be in danger, he likes adventures. That's a separate story. Yeah, so that's this one behind me, the Robin of Larkspur series, and that's how it relates to the Chris Baker series. And it also ties into the Rogue Gods trilogy that came out at the end of this year, because the characters like to torture me. They like to do these massive Marvel-esque crossover type things and not inform me until I can't avoid it plot-wise. Yeah. It's inevitable. There's no way I can write a sequel to any of the series that are affected by it until I deal with the massive crossover that they have set up for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I dropped your Kickstarter for the book because that isn't the one that's on the description box links. So by the way,
yes,
if you like any of the books you're hearing about or the authors you're hearing about, go down to the description box and click the links and check out their stuff. But That's Melinda's Kickstarter there.
Yeah, the Rogue Gods, I did a Kickstarter for it back in July, but I will have the illustrated Rogue Gods books in the next Kickstarter as well. So if you missed it, you can get it in there, because it's not something you can get on Amazon. Amazon can't print a 600 and something page full book with lots of full color images. They have a cutoff, and they can't do the gold foil or the ribbons or the, you know.
Oh yeah, we love our special editions.
Can't do the bling.
So it's exciting. And then Nikki, you have so many books as well, and you've written across so many different like subgenres. If you have not seen Nikki's other books, I mean, The Clockwork Cat, I think, was the first one. The Girl in the Clockwork Cat was the first one that I had picked up of yours, but you have so much variety. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the newest book you put out, sort of what makes it unique. Tell us about the characters, what they're doing.
Well, I do. Part of my problem with the variety is that the characters tell me what genre we're writing. So, but the newest series, I actually have unusually a male protagonist who he's living. At 5 years old, his ears were cut off. They're kind of elven, but they're not called elves in the book. But the tips of his ears were cut off, and he was found on his own and adopted by a man who took him in, who lives in a kingdom his people are at war with. But when we come into the story, he's being hunted by mercenaries and finding out that there are a lot of secrets this man was keeping from him about who he is and all of that. And when he gets rescued from the mercenaries by a group of people from his country, he begins to learn, you know, who he was supposed to be and that he might have magic abilities. And he has this chance to return to the world he was supposed to grow up in, but he doesn't know their language or anything about them. All he knows is, according to the people who raised him, they're the bad guys. So that's kind of where it all starts. But this was a 4-book series that I wrote the first draft in 5 months because the main character was just ready to go, would not let go. So it's a lot of fun. I love the main character of the series because he's so vulnerable in the beginning and he grows so much, but he always kind of stays true to who he really is. And it's got some really, really strong found family and friendship themes because that was very important to me in my life at the time that I started writing it. Not that it's not now, but yeah, it's been a really fun series, and I'm really excited because I found a narrator for doing the audiobooks in the next year, so I'm excited about that too. And I'm also writing a spin-off, or well, kind of a spin-off, another series that takes place in the same world with a female protagonist. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It's really exciting. I love just seeing the books that pop up and be like, oh, that, especially the ones that are spin-off, and you're like, oh yes, I know the reference to that. It's great. And I dropped your link too for people who are tuning in. So Nikki Lee, I am excited about learning more about what you've written because you're one of the only people on the panel that I have not read yet. So your book's going on my TBR for next year. But you have a lot of different kinds of writing as well, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about your most recent one that's in the works? And
Yeah, so like so I write kind of epic fantasies, I guess my bread and butter, as slow as I tend to write it. So the last book took me about 2 years to put together because it's about 187,000 words. And every time I write another draft of something else that hits the 100K mark, I was like, oh, if I had just written a normal length book, I would be done by now. So that's the Raken's Fall, which is this one, which is a continuation of obviously Raken's Familiar. So just basically it's more magic, more monsters, more mayhem, set in a sort of a Byzantine city. that is like the city of mancers, or magicians essentially. And again, like the main characters on the run from the law, and so they're sort of ducking and covering in the alleyways and discovering all sorts of underbelly secrets, living in the city. But I also released a bunch of short stories, maybe even like 2 weeks before that book came out, which I don't ever recommend doing. Releasing 2 books together almost at the same time was that was a lot of work, which is this little collection, which is a night of
I love
Night
that
So Dark
cover.
and Full of Stars. So this is actually me on Canva. Managed to find a really nice watercolor that was part of the professional stock imagery, and found some really nice fonts and managed to put that together for the micro press that I worked with for this one. So it's essentially 12 stories inspired by the zodiac signs, and each story is either sort of contemporary fantasy, a bit of horror. There's quite a bit of dark fantasy in there, and it ranges from like ancient Mesopotamia to all the way far future, sci-fi fantasy mash. There's even a sci-fi horror in there. So yeah, so it's kind of a mix of everything. So it's a lot of genre mashing. So there's like some sci-fi horror, which I said before. There's a sci-fantasy far planet that has kind of fantasy elements. So these people have been left on this planet, and they've kind of forgotten the technology. So sort of that whole like, if technology is like the whole thing of like sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, so they think things that are technology based are actually magic based. So yeah, and then I also have a tiny little sci-fi hope punk novella, which is very small. And this one just got announced as a semi-finalist in the Finks.
Oh, congratulations!
So yeah, I just found that like maybe a week ago. So that's quite exciting too.
That's really exciting. And for those who don't follow Sphinx or Spiffo, those are blog off contests for fantasy and sci-fi of different kinds, and they are judged by bloggers. And it's just so much fun to see the reviews and people talk about the book. And it's a huge deal. Like, how many contestants are you up against? 100?
There was, I think, 100 in this take. So yeah, so I knew the day that it opened. I was like, I'm going to be there on the dot to get this thing in, because I'm aware of how quickly they fill up. And I was like, I set an alarm on my phone and everything.
Well, that's great. Best of luck going into the next round. Yes. And Nikki does have a special page on her website for trigger warnings for the people who love dark but want to know what you're getting into. You can go check those out there. It's really, though, well done on bringing all the genres together. We've got a whole panel tonight at 8:30 p.m. of other genre bending authors who are like, we're going to just smash genres together in the same book. And I was like, yes, that's fantastic. AJ, we have already got a fan for you, not your mountain TBR for 2025. And while we're talking, everybody who's watching live, drop your questions. We're doing this live and not pre-recorded because we want to actually like answer your questions, talk to the authors for you. So let us know what you're wondering about characters, about their books, about writing, about publishing, whatever you'd like to know. But AJ, you have so much going on.
Maybe not as much as the other folks. Yeah, I have a lot going on. I'm working on the prequel to these guys, which is way more dark, but it kind of pulls in a lot of context. It actually turned into more of a novella. We see a lot more of this second character from these books called Samuel, and kind of how he got into the place where he got to start off this book, as well as how, I'm sorry, there's a lot of extra noise. Is that mine? I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Okay. Okay.
I think you're good.
Oh, okay. So the prequel kind of goes into a lot of, there's like this really dark kind of ghost specter that kind of follows them around in the second book. And it kind of explains that, how he got into contact with this entity. There's a lot more monsters involved, things like that. So the prequel goes into a little bit more of that, how he developed this, patronage with this deity, kind of goes into a little bit more of the detail of what it's like to be a nobleman's son who doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to be a noble, kind of wants to play around and have fun. and how he turned into the mage that you see in the following books. He starts out with 0 magic, and suddenly, you know, how he gets his magical powers. So that's a lot of fun. I also have a Royal Road serial that's going on called An Ambitious Woman and Her Very Normal Pet. And that's a lot of fun. It's about a necromancer who, it's like a time loop. So like a necromancer who gets to the end of these necromantic and druidic wars, where we've got one country that is primarily built up of people who practice druidic magic, and then an entire country who practices necromantic. And they used to be allianced, but now they're not. They used to be allied. And there was this huge bloody war. And so they separated into 2 different countries. And then there's a big war because the druidic people want their land back, and they end up totally overwhelming the necromantic country and executing as many active magical users as that they can. And so the very last one gets up to be executed and looks around and says, "I just wanted a farm. What the heck?" So as she's executed, she gets to be time looped back to right before the wars, and it kind of follows her and her ability to, or not her ability, her journey in building a family, and whether that family is made up of skeletons that help her with her farm, or the people in town where she doesn't want people to know that she's a necromancer, and so she has to keep it on the down low, and lots of fun like that. I'm going into a little bit more of that because it really ended on a huge cliff note where the prince of the country who is overrun has now discovered that he has druidic powers, and now they're trying to ally the 2 factions together again. And I'm really interested in getting that arc going. I also have another cozy sapphic about a woman who, just an isekai. She shows up, she's like, I like this world. I'm just going to do the best that I can with what I have. And it's just really nice. And I needed that this November.
Yeah. So it's like a isekai where she's not angsting to get back the whole time?
Oh, yeah, no. In fact,
that's great.
She's under the impression, she understands that she has died in our world. And it's transmigration. So she ends up in somebody else's body. She has all of her memories, things like that. So she looks around and says, well, I don't have a life anymore, but this person had these dreams and goals. So how do I make this person's life exactly how this person wanted it? Just in case my soul gets booted out, at least they can come back to their life and have all of their dreams come true. So that's kind of
that's sweet.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
So, that's all the fantasy I've got going on.
Lots of variety. Everybody watching can take their pick at what they like. We're not going to go around in a circle for this one. I'm going to let whoever wants to answer. But as women who are writing epic fantasy, especially here in the indie genre, have you felt like it has been harder to break through in the epic fantasy scene? Or do you have advice for other writers who are trying to break into writing epic fantasy a little bit in the new year?
I don't know. For me, I have noticed that a lot of like the groups I join and stuff tend to be very male dominated. So it can feel a little awkward trying to etch your place in there. But I have a big piece of advice, is that I started publishing in 2014. I didn't start advertising until this year, and my sales have gone way up. So do that. But yeah, they don't sell themselves. But yeah, I do find that it's definitely a little more heavy male dominated genre. But I do think there is room. I haven't run into too many authors who weren't willing to give me the space if I was willing to come and try and take it, So I think it's just a matter of not being intimidated by that fact.
Yeah, and epics take us time. Look at Sanderson. Or not Sanderson. Sanderson writes tons. Martin, look at George R. R. Martin. It's like, I'm going to be old and gray and headed to Book Hollow before I get this book.
I don't think he's ever going to finish it. He's made some comments recently that I don't think, not to get too deep into this, but I think he may have written himself into an impossible situation. And like, as a fellow pantser, I feel his pain. I literally feel his pain on that, because I'm constantly writing myself into corners and trying to get out of them. But
That's
you
actually, that's my theory too, is that he wrote himself into a corner. He's actually the reason I've been writing my full series before I release any of the books, because I'm paranoid now.
I've got 3
I'm not.
series that only have 1 book left at this point, and I keep telling myself, no, you are not going to do this. You are going to get this done, because we're not going to be this way. But that's, yeah, while we're doing our epics and they take time to write and they take time to edit, we can be reading other people's epics. And that's the great thing about panels like this. Like, hey, if you're not reading my book right now, check out Poppy's or Nikki's or Melinda or the other Nikki's books right now, and then come back. But anybody else have any thoughts there? And then we've got a question from Alex I'll pull up.
I do have something to add. Because I don't operate necessarily in the epic fantasy spaces, though I do write some aspects of epic or high fantasy. What I actually notice is the male domination in serial writing, and especially getting into that group, the Royal Road and things like that. And not only how male dominated it is, but also the tropes are very male gaze. There's very little room for LGBTQ plus. Words. There's not an audience for it over there. And so breaking through those walls has been very interesting, and trying to find the audiences, because the audiences are there. It's just not hitting the main pages. So just like Nikki McCormick said, is you have to advertise, you have to get your stuff out there, and don't be intimidated, because it's not that they're not necessarily exclusionary to women or to non-binary or trans people. It's just that they don't maybe speak up. And so, stand strong in those spaces, be who you are.
And I wanted to add that I've been publishing epic fantasy since 2016. It was much harder when I started to get, it was very male dominated, and it was very hard to get into anything because I'm not a man and I don't choose to write with initials. My name is on there and it's very clearly not a man's name. Or I could have shortened my name to Mel because that is my nickname, but I didn't want to do that. But it's much easier now. There's a lot of fantasy authors who are women who are doing really well. We all know the big one. So, but there's many others, especially in the indie side. So I'd say if you are writing indie fantasy now, go for it, balls to the walls, get it out there, do it, and don't be afraid. Don't worry. There's plenty of us women out there writing it. Make friends with us, find us. We will, and these panels are a great way to find them. I met a really good friend at one of these panels. I think it was 2 years ago. We're still friends, and I just bought a bunch of her books from her store. So we're out there. Make friends with us. We're lonely. We female epic fantasy authors or fantasy authors. We're always looking for writing buddies. Reach out.
Yes.
And I also wanted to add that retail can be very hard, but find other spaces. If Royal Road is not for you, I have done several Kickstarters, and I have found that Kickstarter tends to be very women dominated in terms of backers, in terms of women authors running campaigns and knocking it out of the park. So that might be something to look into. It's just, I'm in a couple of groups, and a lot of the Kickstarters are run by women with and for women readers.
We love our pretty books. We know what a pretty book is.
Exactly. But there are also men who like pretty books. I do want to put that out there. There are a lot of men out there who love pretty books, and we thank you for supporting our Kickstarters and for buying our pretty books. Yes. So I don't want to say that we're against men, because my most popular character is a man.
No, and if you watch panels from prior years, everybody, like I said, this is the first time it's been an all-women panel. There's always been good mixed representation on the Blitz. Please follow all the authors. Because we're, a rising tide lifts all the ships here. When indie fantasy is done well and readers find it and love it, then all of us benefit from it in the end, right? We're a community. And Nikki Lee, I'm going to let you take it.
So the thing that has stuck out to me is just the steps, the typecasting that female authors tend to get. I see it more when I'm at conventions and that sort of thing. All the girls come and stop at my stall, regardless of what I write, but the men kind of keep walking. I've definitely noticed that. Kudos to the men that do stop and have a look and kind of don't just assume that I write romance. Not to throw shade at romance, because I do love a romance book, but that's not the genre that I particularly write well. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest struggles I've had, is kind of convincing people to pick up my books with a female name on the cover and a female face, obviously, selling it. But I think to the point that everyone else has sort of already said is that, yeah, networking makes huge difference. And it's the whole rising tide lifts all boats. And I think the biggest thing I have learned since I started is that the most rewarding thing is when you can not necessarily pull up the ladder behind you, but actually put it down for other people. I've had quite a few authors that have done that for me, and it's almost a motivation to then do it to other emerging authors that are coming through. And that has been really rewarding, seeing that come about, purely from like inviting someone to share a table with me at a convention, to sharing someone's latest debut or something like that. It's a really rewarding experience, and it builds really good relationships that kind of end up working for both people. So yeah, definitely network, definitely give back as much as you are receiving.
Yeah. Oh, I got goosebumps. You guys are awesome and huge inspirations. And like Poppy said too, if you're getting into this, the genre is, or the audience is there. And they are not necessarily being served books all the time. So if you can find where your audience gets their books, that's like my one added piece. Look for not where the books are being published that are best-selling right now, but where is your actual audience hanging out? Like on this panel, if you're a reader and you love these kind of books, put in the comments, where are you buying your books? Like we can go and try to bring books to readers where they are. And that's fantastic. Alex, marketing medium of choice. As an indie epic fantasy author, I'm always curious what works best for others. I feel like this is going to be pretty subjective because it's going to vary a lot by that audience and the subgenre. I don't know. Like I don't always go with the same marketing medium for every series. It's going to vary depending on what the subgenre is. Like Melinda, you've got Kickstarter. It's a big one that's part of your marketing strategy now. Do you have any others that you're like, this is something I always try to do?
Yeah, I also have a podcast and I have a YouTube channel. And they're small, but there are some people who prefer to follow me there and keep abreast of what's going on with books and things. Also, your newsletter, it is something that you own and that is portable. If you don't like your newsletter host, you don't have to stay with it. You can break up and go to another one, but it is something that you own, and those people have opted in because they want to hear from you. So that is always going to be your best tool. And people get hung up on like open rates and all that. Just don't even pay attention to that, because somebody on that list may only open one email and they may buy, that may be the email that they click and buy your book. So like, you know, people's inboxes are crowded. They have stuff going on. You know, anyways, that is your best tool, and you should, you should speak to those people frequently, let them know what's going on, keep them, even if you're like like some of my books go really fast, some of them, the Rogue Gods thing I was working on for 10 months because it was a plot nightmare, which is why I feel R.R. Martin's pain. That was some difficult plotting there, but yeah, and just keeping, like, letting them know that, hey, the characters are driving me nuts. I'm having a whole big problem with this. Or like there's so much you can do to keep people engaged and knowing what's going on. And if your newsletter is on, I know people have a lot of issues with Substack because of, some of the things that they choose to allow on there. But leaving that all aside, like, if you're using Substack as your newsletter, then your newsletter is also publicly available and searchable. And it's also a blog. My newsletter started as a blog, And that's where I got the first people who bought like the original version of Cursebreaker Enchanted, my first book that came out in 2016. Those were the people that chose to buy it, were from that blog, and the followers of that blog became the first people on my newsletter when I built it. So I'm always cognizant of the fact that yes, blogging it used to be a huge thing in 2015 where you could put up a blog and you get tons of people visiting. I went from 0 people to 25,000 people looking at it. All I did was post in 2015. That was a thing. Like the internet was very different back then, but there's still power in that. And especially if you're in a place like Substack where there's more visibility and it's showing it around, like you get random people signing up on Substack, just, every day, every week. So that's more people who are wanting to hear about my books and meet these insane characters who have decided they want me to write their life stories. So there's that. There's other promotional vehicles you can try, but anything else that's not yours is going to vary based on how well it does. I used to do a lot of BookBubs, but epic fantasy is really hard with BookBubs. I've had one that did really, really well, and I sold 700 copies of a 99-cent book, which means I got about 30 cents for each one. So I sold lots of books, but I didn't make tons of money. And I've had other BookBubs where the cost benefit wasn't there. So it's always going to be things you control. Like if you have your own YouTube channel, if you have your own newsletter, which is always your best tool, or, anything that you control is always going to do the best for you. I'm sorry, I went on too long.
It's okay. I think there's a lot of I want to say standard, but it's not really standard. If you don't know what you're doing going into this, the newsletters, and definitely owning your own platform. So that if the platform you're on goes away, then you still have your readers and you haven't lost them, right? So that's really important. And, I do a lot of social media, but I diversify my social media so that it's not all my eggs in one basket. And readers, if you're on and you want to make sure you don't lose contact with authors, please follow them on their stuff. Like go sign up for their newsletter. A lot of us have free books to give out. Too. So
that's really important with TikTok possibly going away in the United States. It's more important now than ever to make sure that you're following your favorite authors in the places where they're at.
Yeah. Nikki Lee, you got anything to add to that point?
I guess for me, because obviously I'm based in New Zealand, so I'm quite a bit far away from everyone else. So for me, obviously the social is great for all the international readers. But in terms of a local sort of marketing strategy, I found all the local conventions very, very good in terms of both networking. So we have an author's alley that we do as part of our Armageddon, which is basically Comic-Con for New Zealand. And so you actually have this really great group of people coming together. We go have dinner afterwards, even though we're exhausted. And that's been actually really useful in terms of both networking and having kind of your own little cheer squad in a chat. And in terms of actually connecting face to face with your readers, that's really rewarding. And what's really great is when you have sold someone your book at one convention and then they come back to the next one and they go, I loved it. Where's the next one? And you go, here you go. So that's been really good in terms of actually just kind of not organically making sales, but in terms of building a reader connection, it's been really, really good. And it's even great when they tag you in social media afterwards, because you see hundreds of people over the course of the weekend, and then you see kind of the stuff that gets filtered through the Instagrams, the Blue Skies, the Facebooks, that sort of thing, is they often will tag you afterwards as their Armageddon hauls, or I've just finished reading this. So it kind of has a bit of a long marketing tail afterwards as well.
Yeah. That's great. I'm nervous. I don't do a lot of those in public, so don't feel like you have to go if that's not your thing. But I would love to work up the courage to one day do that.
I highly recommend sharing a table. It keeps costs down, especially if you've only got, like me, I've only got sort of 3 or 4 books out. And so I don't have a lot to fill a table. But also it means that you have someone, A, that kind of you can banter with, and B, if so for example, I share with a horror poet, and also occasionally with a YA sci-fi writer. And because I don't have a lot of either of those genres, it means that they go, oh, I read more horror, or I read more sci-fi, and I'm like, well, here you go. Have a look at this one. So it actually works really well in terms of being able to hook in readers to various genres that they're interested in.
So this is very important also because I do most of my sales during cons too, and this loops back into exactly what you were talking about earlier with women coming up to your table. I normally share a table with a giant guy wearing a kilt who sells military sci-fi, and it is the best collaboration in sales, like in-person sales ever, because we get men coming up, we get women coming up, we get veterans, we get LGBTQ people, because my books are queer, and it's just a fantastic workaround. So I just wanted to add that. If you share a table, it's the best way, in my opinion, to start out and get comfortable.
Yeah, diversify readers, meet new people, for sure. Nikki, anything else you'd like to add there? We've got one more question in the chat that we're going to take, and then we're going to wrap up with our sneak peeks at what's coming in the new year.
Not really. I definitely want to support doing cons because I've met some of my most loyal readers there, and I get to see them again and again, and it's always so much fun to get to talk to those people and get to meet new readers and bring them in. And sharing a table is also good if you have the space. I'm getting a little too many books to do it anymore, but because I take too much space. But yeah, and also the social media has definitely helped improve my sales and stuff just by interacting with people more and getting out there, supporting people, and getting an opportunity to share information and stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. So yes, lots of looking into conventions for the new year. The question we got, and we're going to tackle this one pretty quickly. I might let you take it, Nikki McCormick. I know you've written a whole lot of books and a whole lot of different things, and you are like where the muse leads you. Melinda's that way too. When did y'all realize you were ready to publish? Will there always be that self-doubt?
Yes.
Yeah, in my personal experience, my debut novel, which was not the first one I wrote by any means, but my debut was actually picked up by an agent and a publisher, which helped me feel more confident in releasing it. But even having had that validation, when I switched to self-publishing, that self-doubt is always there. There's always that moment where like, is it really ready? So I don't know if that ever goes away. I think you just have to get better at recognizing that you're just being paranoid.
Yep. I published 30 books, and every single time, like, that doubt, and I'll hold it for a few days and sit with that doubt and be like, is this real? If you can get a beta reader or somebody to read it, that helps. I finally got a beta reader, and I will call them and be like, is this ready? And she'll be like, if you don't put this out there, people are waiting for this book. Put this out there. It's fine. So, and even after that, like until like, some reviews, I don't do ARC. So the book goes out and months later you finally get a review. And like, so for several months, I'm like, should I have held it for a little longer? Should I have rewritten that one chapter 15 more times? And then until you get some feedback from somebody outside of your head that isn't your beta reader. I love her very much, my beta reader. She's a relative. But then that also makes me doubt what she tells me because she's a relative. Double-edged sword there. You're still, that doubt is always going to be with you. And there's some books that that doubt never went away from, like the debut book. I've rewritten it 3 times. I caused a war amongst the fans because one of the rewrites was rather drastic, and it was the people who preferred the original version, the people who preferred the revised version, and I didn't mean to cause a war in the fandom. So it never goes away. I'm sorry to tell you that. You just get better at dealing with it and ignoring it, but it never goes away.
Yes, be kind to yourself. Set realistic goals and accept what comes with grace, which might sound weird, but it's like when I started out, I was like, well, I'm not a real writer if I self-publish, which is a myth, you guys. That's not true. There are best-selling authors who make 6 figures off of books every year who are self-published and put out super quality work, and you see a lot of quality work represented like on this panel, and you'll see more through the Blitz. But I told myself, well, okay, if it wins an award or places in a contest, then I'll think I'm a good writer. And I did, and that didn't change me doubting whether it was any good. And then I was like, if I get top bestsellers in my Amazon categories. I'll feel like it is, because then people don't spend their money to make you feel better. Okay. They just complete strangers
Right.
don't buy your books as a favor for you. They buy
No,
it because
but
they like it.
it's because of the packaging that they're buying. So then the doubt starts to bite you again, because you're like, wait, they
Exactly.
haven't even read it. And they're buying it because they like the cover, the title, the blurb. They have no idea what's inside.
Right. And so I was like, if I hit that and then I hit that, and I was like, well,
Mhm.
it's still a fluke. If I hit a USA Today bestselling title, I will recognize that I am actually an author for real, and then hit the
No.
title, and then a week later I was like, why do I still feel the doubt?
No, you'll run a Kickstarter that makes 4 figures, or if you're lucky, 5 figures, and you'll still be like, the doubt will still be there
Mhm.
because they're buying it without seeing it.
But the reviews from readers and the support from readers is what has kept me writing and what has kept me publishing. And so, to all the readers who are watching, what you do matters to us more than we can tell you, and it means more than we can say. Like, if I didn't have a lot of those reviews in that debut, I don't know that I would have pushed as hard with the subsequent books, because it was reading them being like, this really touched me. This meant the world to me. I loved this character. I relate with that. It's like the review you leave is for other readers. Us writers, especially newbie writers, you might not want to read your reviews for a while. Like, just let them sit for a bit. But going back several years later and looking now at those reviews, I'm like, okay, we're going to get through the doubts, because if they thought this was good, then I'm going to keep doing it.
But also, like, what helps is go to like George R.R. Martin or like Brandon Sanderson, read the 1-star reviews. Go to books that you've loved, read the 1-star reviews. That'll make you feel better, because there is somebody out there who absolutely hated your favorite book. You know, that book that you've read so many times that you absolutely adore. There are people out there who hate it, who think it's horrible. So reading that can sometimes make you feel better, because you realize that not everybody's you can't make everybody happy. Nothing you write is going to get 5 stars from everybody. Somebody will not like it, and that's okay.
And Poppy, you got anything to add?
I do. I have a very unique experience on self-publishing, and that's in that it was part of the Inkfort Publishing Derby, which happens every year in May, where you sign up. 100 authors get chosen. You're assigned a cover, a pen name. You write, edit, publish, and market a book in 4 months. And you have to do it completely anonymously, and it's zero cost. So this is not the first book I've written. That one is on the back burner. It's getting rewritten. But I was so terrified of putting that out and putting out something bad that I just jumped in with the sharks and published something bad. And it turns out people really like it. And you'll see, I do need to re-release this at some point. So this, if you buy it now, it's a special edition. But there are typos, there are grammatical errors. There's a character named early on that is like, their name changes halfway through the book because I didn't catch it on my third pass of edits. And that set me up for success in the sense of, I published this thing and now I've sold over 150 copies of it. I have people that actually come up to me at cons and say, I love your book. And this is not a good book for me. So it's really neat. So I think just set yourself up for the success, put it out there, trust yourself and trust your readers.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting the link here for the Derby. We're not sponsored by them, but if they ever did, I wouldn't be against it. Okay? One of the links here today are affiliate links in any way. So you guys are just supporting the authors. That is it.
They're non-for-profit, but if you would like to donate to help for the covers, because they create their covers every year, it's no cost to join. It's a no-spend event. People don't make any money. They don't get any money from the books that we sell. So if you want to help them out, definitely donate to get their cover funds.
Yep. All right. So we're looking into 2025. It's going to be a whole new year. We've got a lot of stuff going on in the bookish world. So what do readers need to be watching for you guys? Nikki Lee, I'm going to let you kick us off on this one. What should people be looking for, events or books or projects in 2025 from you?
So I guess the big project for me is writing the third book in my trilogy, which is I'm about 70,000 words through it now, and it's going to be a big one. It's because it's epic and it's the end of a trilogy. So I'm tying up all my loose ends, which I'm now
Oh,
cursing myself for. So I think it's going to be sitting at, I think I'll be very excited if I manage to keep it under 200,000 words, but I think it's going to be closer to 220 or 250, and I'm like, oh my God. So that's probably going to be a huge chunk of my year taken up by just drafting that. However, I'm hoping to be able to then once I finish that as kind of a palate cleanser to write a few more novellas, hopefully in the 2 series behind me, which way they're here, that everyone keeps asking for more stories for. So we'll wait and see if an idea kind of sparks as something in between my rounds of edits.
yeah, exciting. Those final books are the hardest to write, though, in my experience. Like, I don't want to say goodbye.
No.
I have maybe plans of like sequels and things like that, but it's so far in the future that I'm like, again, I'm kind of like a pantser plotter, so a plantser. So I was like, I have an idea, but I have no idea whether I will actually pursue it or not. So we'll see. So it's nice to have the door that could be opened again.
Yeah, the hope is there. Nikki McCormick, what's coming up in 2025 for you?
I kind of cheated and mentioned earlier, but I've started working with a narrator to put out the 4-book Warden Son series in audiobook, and I'm very excited about this narrator, so that'll be great. And then I just finished the first draft of a new trilogy that takes place in the same world as the Warden's Son, but has a female protagonist and is about 14 years in the future. But that one just finished first draft, so I started the edits on book 1 yesterday. So I'm hoping that that'll be ready to start coming out by middle of next year, maybe end of next year, depending on how long edits and other things take. But very excited about that too. So look forward to that.
Yay! Oh, I can't wait to hear more about the narration. Melinda, what's coming up in 2025 for you? So we got the Kickstarter. We already dropped
Yeah.
that.
So there's that
else
one
going up?
Yes, I'm gonna put out a brand new. It was gonna be a trilogy, but the characters have informed me recently that it is not a trilogy. It is 4 books. So a trilogy that's not actually a trilogy, and what is it? Quadrilogy. Brand new quadrilogy. Hopefully they're gonna stick to it only being the 4 books. We'll see. It's called Riders of the Apocalypse, and will come out sometime in 2025, whenever the characters allow. So I'm already, I hope I'm halfway through the first book. It's hard to tell. This time it wasn't supposed to be a standalone and became a trilogy. It was supposed to be a trilogy and became a 4-book series. So hopefully we can keep it contained to that. But yeah, it's at the end of the His Angelic Keeper series, they released all of these rats into the world, and the 4 Riders of the Apocalypse, and they managed to stop the heroine in that series, managed to stop the last one from getting out. So she paused the apocalypse, but now we have to round up all of the riders and the rats and actually stop the apocalypse permanently. No pressure. So her and the ex-goddess of fate and a bunch of other characters and some dragons are attempting to do this. It's
Yay!
like a D&D. It's humorous fantasy. If anybody else wrote it, it would be some dark apocalyptic thing. But I'm writing it, so it'll be funny and mayhem and magic and lots of friendship and family and all of that.
Nice.
And a lot of magic.
I'm not gonna lie. When you first said Riders of the Apocalypse, I thought you said Writers of the Apocalypse, and I was like,
I sort of feel like I'm writing the apocalypse, but I don't want this world to end.
Writers, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, Poppy, how about you? What's coming up in 2025?
A lot. I'm finalizing the prequel, so that should be out hopefully in February. I'm just finishing up blurbs and things like that, so that should be paperback and ebook in February. Something nice and easy, the sapphic isekai that's kind of cozy, should be out hopefully in March or April. And An Ambitious Woman and Her Very Normal Pet should start serializing, I believe, in May. So it's just year round. I've got a lot going on. I'm also developing my current, I have an interview series and I'm trying to transition it into a podcast. So that'll also be on the docket this year.
Nice. Well, best of luck, everybody. Everyone watching, please go check out these writers' things, check out the events, do the follows for all the cool books, and please subscribe to the channel because we're going to be doing this Blitz for the next few days. There's going to be several panels, and we're going to meet a lot of different authors from a lot of different genres. We did epic now. We got genre bending tonight. We've got middle grade, young adult tomorrow, and horror, and a couple others. So this is a great time just to meet some indies and chat about books. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have a great new year.
Thank you.
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting. It was good fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.